far left is Bob Washburn. Joe Chambers. Did anybody hear from Joe? I didn't know if
He's not going to make it tonight.
he's not gonna be, it was gonna be absent. That's what we thought we saw. So we excuse him with that. And with that being the case, we will have Bob Washburn, you will be a voting member tonight, all right? So that we have a, we'll say, so. All right. With that, we will now invite you to stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Tyler Riggs will lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. All right, the first thing we're going to do is review our minutes and make sure we feel comfortable with everything so that we can get those finally recorded. Did everybody have a chance to take a look at them? It was a short meeting, but wanted to see if anybody saw any corrections or anything.
No issues. It's looking good. I think it's like 3 or 4 months in a row. Good
Awesome.
job.
Okay. I'd asked Tyler to see if he could slip in a couple of name changes there for a couple of things, but he didn't do that. So that's okay.
Awesome.
Right.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the last meeting.
We have a motion to approve, presented to approve the minutes. Can we have a second? Have a second first from Tyler Riggs and a second by Bob Washburn. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the motion passes to approve the minutes. Thank you very much. All right, now what we will do is we have an opportunity here to receive comments from the public. So the first, to get started, I was curious if we had anybody send in any information or comments via email or text messages, anything, nothing like that is okay. I would invite anyone from the audience if they would like to make a public comment. This is, if you have an agenda item, we'd ask that you wait till then. If you'd like to speak on anything general, this would be the time to do. So is there anyone that would like to make any public comment? All right, we will go ahead and close the public comment meeting portion of the meeting. And we have no public hearing scheduled for tonight. And we have no legislative action. So we will go ahead and move on to our first administrative action, which is item number 1 on the agenda, which is Pleasant View Lane preliminary plat. The Planning Commission will review, discuss, and may take action on a request to approve the preliminary plat for the Pleasant View Lane subdivision, a 3-lot subdivision located in the general area of 417 North, 300 East. Is the we're going to invite the Scarlett to come up and give us a review. Are the owners here for that property? Yes. And your name?
Chris Rosenthal.
Chris Rosenthal. Thank you, Chris. All right. Scarlett, if you'd like to come up and give us a summary of all this, that would be awesome.
Okay. So this piece of property is located, as you read from the agenda, at 417 North, 300 East. It's in an R112 zone. They're proposing 3 lots, and so that would make it 3.22 units per net acre. The maximum unit allowed in this zone is 3.75, so they're under that, so that looks good. As far as what we look at when we do a staff review of the preliminary plat, we look at the Providence City's general plan, and we also look at the master plans. We look at the Utah Code, Title 10, Chapter 9A, Part 6 is the subdivision code in Utah State Code. We look at that, make sure that we're following those rules. We look at our general plan and our master plans. We look at our own code for water availability requirements and for preliminary plat requirements. And I'm not going to read those, but we literally, Ryan always says, Scarlett checks boxes. That's what I do. I go down our code and I put a check mark by each requirement. There are a couple of things that were missed, but they're not things that are deal breakers by any means. But they didn't show the permanent buildings and structures within 100 feet. They missed a couple of structures. And then the other thing that we needed is the information for the water. And they didn't provide that. So as you look at the conclusions of law, we've enacted ordinances. Providence City has enacted ordinances that require a subdivision plat to comply with the provision of our ordinances and the provisions of the state code. When we looked at the general and the master plans, you can read how this these lots impact those plans. We have several plans that we look at. Along with the general plan, we look at the parks, open space, we look at, I don't know why I put parks, open space, and urban trails. It's actually parks, trails, and recreation. So anyway, that's what we look at. It's our master plan. We look at the transportation master plan. We look at our 40-year water right plan, our 2020 wastewater master plan, our 2019 stormwater master plan, and our 2022 culinary water master plan. In most of the subdevelopments, particularly the smaller ones, the way that the developers meet the obligations in the water, wastewater, stormwater master plans or not stormwater, the water and the wastewater is through impact fees. This area is included in the areas that were studied by all of those master plans, and they will meet those as the capital improvements that we have designated or needed. They will meet them when they pay their impact fees. They'll pay their contribution towards getting those improvements put in place. As far as stormwater goes, the development will take care of stormwater on site, and that will be shown when we get into our construction drawings. The water availability requirements, they will need to provide that information to us, and but that can also be done with the final plat. So that's when it actually, the way the ordinance reads out, it's when it absolutely has to come in, is with the final plat. So the conditions, they would need to provide the water availability requirements. They would just need to show on the preliminary plat those couple of structures that aren't shown, that are existing. They would need to address any comments in Aaron Walker's letter, which is included in the packet. It's dated July 5th, 2023. This letter, some of this actually is going to have to take place with the placement of the homes. So this is kind of yes, they'll prepare the driveway and make sure it's located in the proper spot and the turnaround and everything for the fire trucks. But some of these things will depend on the size of the home and the placement of the home when they're actually built. And so we'll take care of that at that point in time. But at this point in time, they'll need to make sure in the construction drawings that they address Aaron's comments. And then the applicant will need to continue to meet all relevant federal, state, county, and city rules, laws, codes, ordinances. Approval by the city of any application or paperwork submitted does not alleviate the owners and/or their agents from their responsibility to understand and conform to local, state, and federal laws. Providence City's approval is not intended to and cannot be construed to allow any laws to be violated. And in your packet, you should have, I apologize, the last time this went out, you didn't get it, but You should have the actual preliminary plat in your packet, and you should have the area map that shows where it is. So, questions?
Looks really good. Thank you, Scarlett.
I just have one question regarding the private drives for especially for this kind of subdivision that's so small. Do we put like no parking so that the fire trucks can still get in and turn around? I'm just envisioning it kind of just like a driveway.
It
So the
does.
cars are parked there.
It does. The property owners need to adhere to that there's no parking in that area. So, because the 20 feet needs to be kept clear at all times.
If you look at the fire marshal's letter,
Yeah.
it actually calls out that they're required to make sure that those things are there.
Yeah.
Marking, signage and everything.
Oh, perfect.
So would that be a parking violation? For anybody that would park on the 20-foot wide private access road? That, for instance, if there was an emergency, they couldn't get in, there'd be a chance that somebody would get a traffic violation.
There could be a chance that somebody could get a violation for
Or even
parking
children.
improper
Otherwise,
parking.
no parking.
If they need to get a hose through there, they'll take it through the car.
But we still want people to, and we try and caution people and explain the seriousness and the importance of protecting that driveway. But we do have some, in fact, we actually used to allow turnarounds on private property a little bit more often than we do. And the reason why we had to stop is because people just couldn't protect those turnarounds the way we needed them to. They ended up in RV parking and things like that. Luckily, we didn't have an emergency that caused us any serious problems because of that. It did cause our snow plows some problems being able to turn around and remove snow. But when it comes to back on the private developments, we still allow that as long as they meet the rules of the fire code. And Aaron does address that in his letter.
This subdivision is going to require a curb and gutter and sidewalk.
Mhm.
Correct. Curb and gutter and sidewalk on part of that street already. if I'm correct.
On the east side there is, I don't know if there is on the west. But there are a couple of properties, I don't know if they will be able to now because the floodplain changed in that area with the recent change of the flood maps. But there are a couple other big properties in that area that are considering doing something similar. So when you first think, well, this sidewalk is going to go nowhere, it probably will for a little while, but it probably won't be too awfully long before other people put their portions in.
Really, would it need to be a sidewalk that has ADA, because there's that street on the other side, but that looks like it's a private driveway. So
Yeah, no, not at this point.
So snow plows aren't gonna be going down that road, right?
No, not the private driveway, right?
The responsibility of the maintenance for 35-foot wide easement. That falls to the parcel actually includes, each parcel includes part of the private access.
Correct.
So that the maintenance of that easement is going to be up to the individual owners, the 3 individual owners.
Yes.
Anybody, any other questions for Scarlett? Comments?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Scarlett. Appreciate it. Chris, we'd invite you up to come up and share your feelings. Take about 30, 45 minutes, give a brief history of yourself. Maybe just tell us your plans, anything different from what Scarlett's provided and what's been here, and
Just say your name again for the record.
Chris Rosenthal.
What else I can add?
okay.
We've been here for 2 years. Our plan was to stay here longer. We love the area. The reason why we're doing this is just in general, we have some family situations that require us to move
Yeah.
and perhaps get a little extra along the way, so.
All right. And it looked like I was out there today. Looks like you have some potential buyers already for those lots. So,
Yes,
Now, you're currently living in the house,
yes, sir.
and what's the current irrigation situation there for that house?
Um,
And the current line,
in terms of like a rain, like a flood potential,
here and there, less than 4 irrigation water, or I'm guessing that's.
Oh,
It doesn't go that far.
we do have,
It'd be Spring Creek.
yeah, we do have the potential, we do have the option of having a water share from Spring Creek. I did that last year, but I opted to not use that this year.
But there is a ditch coming. There is an irrigation
Yes.
coming.
Yes,
is that along the back of the property?
it's
What's on the
it's
front?
about
Oh, yeah.
it's about a third back
Yeah.
from there used to be a fence there. I since on my property, I since removed
Put
it.
that out of there.
But yeah, there's a ditch still there.
Sounds great. I'm sure a lot of that stuff will change, if it stays that way, and culvert over it as the drive goes in, things like that.
I do have a question, if I may.
Sure.
It was mentioned that there were some structures that were not
Right.
located on the map. If they are not, if they're going to be removed before this before the
Before the
completion of
thing.
this, do they still need to be put on the map?
Well, I would assume that they should be noted on the map, but you could note on there that they will be removed,
Okay,
Yes.
but they need to be shown that everything is shown there.
okay,
So,
I will notify my engineer.
so. All right. Any other questions for Mr. Rosenthal? Any comments, concerns?
We need to add that as a condition, or is that? Thank you.
Well, it's in there. She
It's
hasn't
in there.
listed that it hasn't been completed. One of the items there. So, thanks, Tyler.
Well, outbuilding is actually right in the detention pond. Yeah, very important.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Well, comments, questions? How do you guys feel about this? It looks pretty straightforward. I think the city's done a great job addressing the issues.
That looks very straightforward to me. Staff views the Rosenthal's, but
I
I
would-
would welcome our new.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Question?
Yeah, can I?
Yes, please come up and if you'll state your name.
Yeah, my name is John Hubbard. I own the parcel to the west.
Okay,
And I have a few questions, because I'm friends with Chris. And I just got this information today about the plat. So, first question I had is, and this goes back historically, is years ago, we had these issues with flag lots. And I scoured the city code for an hour this afternoon. I can't find anything about flag lots. It may have changed. I don't know. So is that correct? Is that
10 years ago,
okay? So
city council.
Okay.
flag lots.
okay, so there's developments up on Third South, Lichty subdivision and stuff like that, and I guess that falls into the same thing. So, so more to nuts and bolts issues. You know, I'm on this Blacksmith Fork irrigation system. I'm the last guy on the ditch coming down, and we irrigate. I flood irrigate 8 acres with 15 shares of Blacksmith Fork water, and we manage that pretty well. And we work with Visionary and the new street bridge, the Spring Creek Parkway, and we made an agreement with Jeff Jackson and Spring Creek, or the Visionary Vineyards, to put the street in, curb and gutter. It's a big affair. It's been a couple of years, and we deeded the detention pond to them for managing the water on the south side of Spring Creek Parkway. And perhaps for my future development that may be some years off, you know, that area, that far northwest corner of my piece. And we have Spring Creek on our west border, which is, you know, a major waterway. It can be. So
We'll get on there.
thank goodness it didn't bring gravel this year. But the major thing I look at this subdivision is the street and bringing water on a curb and gutter on the south side of the proposed street, the private lane, to a detention pond. Detention is not retention, it's different. And if I understand, you know, there's the potential that this detention pond will detain water, but then release it, and it would come to me. And I don't know what the implications are on that, you know, but I, as a farmer, you know, I can control my ditch right now. I do have tailwater from my neighbors. Chris is not a shareholder, but Jensen's next door are. And Kevin and Ann Jensen. And then up the street, you know, there's they bring water down there. And we work very carefully with them to make sure that their tailwater is managed, because we go up and turn it off at Second North. So it doesn't flood me out when it's inconvenient, you know.
So we're talking about wastewater.
Tailwater.
Tailwater.
Yeah, careful.
In our block. that's
Well,
what we call
I'm an
it.
irrigation person, so I differentiate.
But-
So at any rate, tailwater is what's left that comes through. I'm fortunate because I live next to the Spring Creek drainage, and my tailwater goes back to a natural drainage, and we have long-standing permission to do that. You know, it's you can't take retention or detention water. You can't put water back in a natural thing without detaining it, at least. Jeff Jackson educated me on all this stuff. So anyway, so that's a major question I have about, you know, the details of this detention right on my irrigation canal on my property. That's something that you can consider and maybe inform me what my rights are to have a detention pond on my boundary, you know.
So your concern is that if that overflows,
Yes.
it's coming out onto your
Yeah,
property.
and there's it's there, and
Yeah.
water is stubborn fact.
Yeah.
And you know, before Visionary came in, and years ago, before Spring Creek Parkway, we had major flooding. In fact, we had major flooding this spring at the intersection of Spring Creek Parkway and Third East. Just the storm drains didn't quite work as well. We had some major runoff issue, but fortunately, it didn't affect me. It may affect Mr. Bender because he's north of this thing. But anyway, not to belabor that, that's just an issue that it concerns us. I don't know, you know, the private lane, people do what they want with their private property. It's not an issue for me. I'm not going to, but in terms of, you know, these streets and things like this, I just wonder what the area is going to look like with a bunch of small, you know, little short private lanes, things like that. It's just kind of curious to me. And I would probably defer to Brian Bender. You know, he may want to have comments on this too, but that major issue is the detention pond and all that. And I'd like to.
So, John, where is the extra water going right now to the lot? Since Mr. Rosenthal is not using it, he doesn't have, well, a challenge.
Right.
So the people just south of it?
Yeah. Well, Jensen's, Ann and Kevin Jensen have a share or two. And then I think the next, we had Kearney had water. I don't know if they still have shares on that. Up south of there, there's a Spring Creek lateral that comes down.
Right. So where does the extra water go?
Well, it generally, my neighbors have been very conscious. We've been there 30 years and we haven't had any real issues. If there's an issue, Kevin or General will call me and he'll shut the water off if I have hay down or I don't want the water.
Right.
It's generally, you know, because I'm pretty casual. I don't live down there. I just farm down there and garden, raise grasshoppers. But, have one the other day, it scared me. Anyway, we generally manage it. When we've had ice, well, rain on ice in February, we've had issues, you know, from the east, from the church parking lot, but those have been largely solved with the new street and the new storm drains and stuff. So that's my major issue, Ron. Is
Don't go anywhere yet. And Mr. Rosenthal was to have had water on his property this year. And his opportunity or where would the water would have gone, the extra water? Would that have gone naturally? Would it just go?
I have a ditch that runs north-south on my east boundary, and it trickles in. You know, they generally, Spring Creek water is not big flows, but you know, and out further north you go, it gets worse than what you have. But you know, generally it's hasn't been a problem, but it casually can go into my irrigation ditch, and then it goes north and hits my lateral or I have ditches all over the place, but and usually, you know, water is not a problem unless you got hay down, or it is a problem.
No, water shared, it's a problem.
Yeah.
It's not an awful problem, it's just an ongoing. Yeah. Okay, so the other question, or the other comment I wanted to make was the idea of the flag lots or whatever they call it, interblock developments.
Right, okay, that's what they're called.
If we are going to either suggest to the city council to approve this, correct me if I'm wrong, or not, we're not going to send it to city council.
Right.
So we are not here to adjudicate or whatever on the splitting, putting this into a flag lot or block development. If you're concerned about the interblock development, the place to go is the city council. I want to make that clear because by law, the interblock development is there. And so we will go along with.
Yeah, I like I say, I'm not contending private property rights and existing laws. I'm not going to, you know.
You're not the first one to ask about,
But
I thought we didn't
I
have.
haven't been down here for a few years, so I'm sort of out of it.
Welcome back. Thanks, John.
Chair, can I
Yes,
just make a couple of clarifying? I'm sorry. One, this is a preliminary plat. I do believe you're the approving body of the preliminary plat. So that's not a recommending body to the council. So this is your, anyway. So I think that's one clarification. One I would have with you that I don't know that I had thought about when I reviewed this, but as I look at their lot, your development of some future is certainly affected by this. If this were a city road and it were to go from property line to property line, you would be able to pick up from the end of that city road onto your property.
Yeah, that's county. That you have to connect to existing, but as a private lane, I don't know how that plays.
So at a private lane, we don't allow more than two off of the private lane. So even if this were to extend to your property as a private lane, you wouldn't be able to pick up off of it. But as a public street, if it were built as a public street with a public street right of way, and it ended, now that would affect the retainage on you mentioned attention, but this says retention. So we do have a difference there, and I want to make sure that we clarify that.
Those words, I do read that.
That's what I was just pointing out, because I know you could, I heard that you could tell the difference. So I was going to point out that this does say it's retention basin or retention pond. But if that road were to continue and the retention pond weren't there, then that would tie into your development, which I don't know what your future is, but at some point, if you are to develop this and need it, and I bring it up to the planning commission as a whole, maybe as a learning, but if he were to develop this, we have several others that have to, in order to have a certain number of homes, they have to have a second out, right? So if he develops from the north, but this becomes if this is developed to this point, this could develop as a second out, but this would be the time to consider thinking about that. And saying, hey, if you're gonna let a private lane go, you're gonna limit this development and he won't connect, and then there will be some other connection. I'm not sure which one yours is. Are you south? North. So you're the Unlimited LLC? S&B? Okay. All right.
My parents, they actually. As it was, when they put that main road in there already, we gave an easement.
Maybe you should stand up.
Sorry, you may want to stand up and, but anyway, my point to you is if there is something in development on yours, this clearly will affect that, and as a planning commission, you should at least consider how this will develop to the next property owner.
Well, what we'll probably do is wait for John, my brother Sean, and he'll probably do something there. Yep. And we're in no hurry, like we said, we're here.
So if you do me one favor, just state your name for Tyler for the minutes.
My name is Brian Bindrup.
Right.
And my brother is Sean, who couldn't be here today. My parents are Reed and Karen, and they donated the ground at the church, the LDS church right there. And then we own the parcel right across the street. And then
So you're to the north of Rosenthal's property.
yes. And it was my understanding when my dad was alive, he passed away about 3 years ago. He said that they definitely need to do check the boundary, because he thought the boundaries were a little off. So there need to be.
You live in city property.
Yes, I do. 280 heavy lane.
So Ryan, if Rosenthal goes forward with the private lane and to service these two lots, and these gentlemen look to develop down the road, they could come across his property with a second out, correct?
And then we'd probably want to look at it on what to maximize the zoning, so if
right.
the houses are actually facing, the west.
Yeah.
Rather than the road to the church there.
Yeah.
Yes, to answer that question, could come through. At this point, this is the one that's proposing development.
Right.
I look down on the map and I say at this point across the street, not quite exactly across, but it looks like there is a potential right of way for some future road along that spot.
Yeah, that's Roger's house.
Yeah, that map is drawn interesting. Roger's Drive. That's a 5 lot. But you're right. It could certainly go through yours at a future development. Doesn't have to do this
Right.
one.
Yeah.
As you're approving this development, just think, what does that do for the next developer because if you were to approve this one and then, tell me Bindrup. If Bindrup came in and they approved theirs as the same method, then he would have just the Spring Creek to come out of. And so anyway, just as a thought, as you're looking at it.
With John, I remember when my dad owned both parcels for the church. Built up right there, and they had car wrecks because there's big, and I know they've done a good job with the drains, but
Right.
I don't really know where they're pushing all that water. And the last thing you want to do is have it pushed, back on his vacant ground just because he's not
Yeah.
building on it yet.
I think we gotta go underground to River Heights.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's-
Works for me.
But yeah, that's.
Okay, that's it. So the question maybe to think about is, did you look at it making it a public road? It's gonna increase size and things like that, but
To be honest.
You'll need to come up to the mic so we can get
if you would,
you.
please.
This is the first time we've ever done anything like this. So
Right.
we're relying on, to be honest, others,
Sure.
our engineer,
Right.
city. to help us decide how to go about this.
Right,
And so we don't have any experience in
that's okay.
land or developing.
That's okay. Hold on there for a minute. So you made a comment that was great, which really is, that they could, well, it's one in a row, so. So, so it could be that he would be required to do half the road or something like that. Is that right? If we were to look at it as a public road?
We would call it a partial road, because it's
Partial road.
actually more than just
More than
half, but
half.
yes. It has to require 24 feet for that,
Right.
to do a partial road cross section.
Yeah. I
So,
wonder if maybe that's something, because then it does line up, you know, potentially with some other stuff. And then the neighbor would be developing his portion of that at some point in time down the road.
And then we get access.
We get access all the way
All
through.
the way through to.
So
Mr.
we still have a question, because if we take the road all the way through, where are we retentioning water? But maybe that's an option too. And so I'm just putting that out, because as we look to those things, so it doesn't limit somebody with his and sharing the cost to some degree of that road, you're not having to bear the whole brunt of it. But
We've already given
That would be
a lot on
concerned.
one side, so we don't want to give, keep
Yeah.
squeezing our lot.
right,
Just so he takes his half.
No.
yeah,
That would be a concern for me, is the financial burden that.
Yeah.
Extra burden it would place on us if I don't know the
yeah.
increase in cost in terms of making it a public road.
Yeah.
So,
Well, maybe it's something to talk with the city about. If we want to looking at potentially, as property gets developed, that we look ahead that way, maybe it is something to take a little time to talk about, because you'd be paying basically for, let's say 2/3 of what the road would be, right?
but so let's talk about a few things. Maybe it's a good education point. 8-inch sewer line would only need to be required once. So it's not, so let's say bin drip, try to keep that. Let's say bin drip. If you were to build yours, you build your 24 foot asphalt cross section, you got 20 feet. So that's an add, 4 feet of add in asphalt, right? But you're already doing the water line and you're already doing the sewer line, which honestly, with bin drip, they would benefit by at least having that line at some future point. But they wouldn't have to redo that when they do their development. But you have already the water sewer. You already have the cross section on the south side. So I think you're already sidewalk and curb and gutter, aren't you? Or you don't, no, on private
No.
drive.
my
So
understanding is it's just required on the frontage.
Right,
Right,
okay.
right, that would be.
On the east side
But
of the
the other side
property.
is that
But-
you're not gonna have to maintain that. For private drive, those 3 property owners are gonna have to maintain that road and the cost and maintenance of it and those types of things. That's just something out there as well. Scarlett, did you have some comments?
So there would be sidewalk, curb and gutter on one side and 4 extra feet of asphalt. That's your cost difference.
So that's just the cost. Okay. I wasn't sure
I'm
exactly.
just trying to put your cost difference
Yeah.
so that,
Is that the only increase?
That's based. Well, Bob, what do you-
Well, if you're gonna go to the property line on the west, then there's.
Oh, then there is the where the retention basin is, there would be that stretch that would have to be asphalt.
That was put it in, and all of a sudden, discovered that we're coming to do another 10 feet rather than 5.
Yeah, and yours, when you came to develop, if that were the case that happened and they did that, they would have, and I don't know the number of feet that would be their cross section, but you'd have to add to the rest of the 66 foot
I know we had to get quite a bit.
on the frontage.
Yeah.
Yeah, this would be in between the two properties, not on the frontage.
Squeezed to the- 2 houses. Can't quite get-
Yeah, this wouldn't be frontage because the frontage would be the same. This would be
I
the
don't-
south
I don't have a
side.
crystal ball,
So,
so I don't
yeah.
know what gonna have to come in. All I'm doing is fighting for much. You have him do his half.
Well, and it would be something where if he stays the private drive and you two decide to develop and he has to have a second out, now you've got a 60-foot wide street that is taken away by roadway through it. So if there's some support for this over here, I mean, you're not, it's a lot less you're giving
And I
up.
don't know what the road has, you know, somebody might come in 20 years or 15
Yeah.
years and want to buy John's and ours, and we might say, okay,
Right.
or, but
Yeah.
you know, my brother's got a bunch of kids, I've got a bunch of kids, my mom lives up the road behind the church.
Yeah.
They donated.
Yeah.
So it's just, yeah, we want to fight for every
Yeah.
inch that we can keep.
Sure.
We just don't want to find out that we have to, they did this, and now we have to give them, you know.
Now, on the other side there, it also, no pun intended, helps you pave the way to have your access and your
Well, I mean,
outlet.
getting back to my dad, originally, way back when we built that building that I.
If you're talking to the mic, sorry.
And I can't, and I don't have the-
You can sit right there.
I don't have the address, but
Right.
his biggest beef was is he wanted to build that building a different direction, but they had, at the time, the city had different plans and it had to be built that way. So what I'm getting at is it's kind of hard to put a boat in that garage. And even though they put up some really nice fences, Randy,
Yeah.
but high school buddy, you know, they did everything great, but it's really gonna get a busy road and it's pretty hard to put a boat and back that in and try to not be an inconvenience there, but, so we're just, yeah, all I can say is I just wanna just put as much forethought and.
If you came and developed, so that's the question is if you came and developed, if he put in, and I don't mean to propose, I'm just,
Yeah.
you get education, really new. He would have about 40 feet on his side. So you're to make up the next, the 66. And what's that?
About 26.
About 26 on your side. And you can either give up the 26, not give it up, it develop anyway.
It's gonna be,
At some point you could do that, or you'll build a whole 66 in order to yours, because you'll have to build the whole
Yeah.
66.
And I don't know what the future holds, and the problem is I'm only half of the.
No, I-
I have an older brother, but he couldn't be here.
Anyway, but that's just the thought is because there are only two off of it, let's say you put in based on your zoning, you could put in 4. We wouldn't let you do a private drive. You'd have to have a full street. So you're at a 66 foot right away.
I don't know the layout. I mean, we don't want to have houses facing, better to have it, the back of the house facing, you know, the church house or right there. And I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, I just want to.
Well, you guys came in and you raised some good points and then looking at future growth. Because, you know, you're gonna get to where at some point in time, these are gonna be some of the last chunks of property in
Yeah.
Providence. And so it's great that the city looks ahead to that and could we do something now and how we do it and also for you to know all the options, you know, because there is advantage to not having to, especially if you were staying there, if you plan to stay there for a while and all of that. And that road's always going to be a part of your responsibility. We're giving it to the city, you know, you guys, there's some options there. So the 3 individuals that end up getting those lots and so forth, will have that, but you just got to look and weigh it. But so it kind of gave you a good idea of what just some options are.
Yeah.
So I think we come back to the question that we started with. If the retention pond was reviewed by the preliminary plans were reviewed by everybody. And so they feel confident that it should be able to retain the water that's anticipated. And it may be something where 500-year flood or something like that, or some crazy thing comes and we don't just have that problem, we have a lot of other problems. But from what typically gets done through all these reviews and stuff that takes place, that everybody looks at it that has mold in that, they feel confident that what they've required would take care and be able to retain the water that would come there. So I think that would be okay. But certainly if there was if there was any other issues, to follow up with some of those departments and see what your thoughts are. Because the last thing you want is getting flooded out at some point for something. Okay, but I would say right now, the engineers feel that what they've required is more than enough to retain that. That would be generated. Any other? Yes.
I've got a question, is if we continue the way that it's planned with the private road right now, at some point, if Mr. Bindrup's property is developed and that wouldn't it be possible to just at that point negotiate and make that a public street?
It really never happens. It will, in theory, yes, absolutely in theory. But generally speaking, in practice, because we wouldn't accept anything subpar, we won't accept a subpar road. So if they haven't maintained it at the level we would expect, then we wouldn't take it. If they hadn't put in curb and gutter, and that road were in a condition it would need to be replaced, we would make them replace it before we would take it. So in most instances, if a private road comes to the city, they have to redo the road before it comes in because of the condition of the road, and it just isn't usually kept in the same condition.
With 3 homeowners properties to get permission to do that at that point, rather than making a decision. Just trying to understand.
Yes, I agree that would be that's different property, and then they would all have to come, all agree at the same point and make the same request and invest the same amount invest the money then. So.
If you've lived on a private drive for a while, you're probably not going to want to open it up to a public road with all that traffic after you've gotten used to that private drive, I would imagine. So
wouldn't mind having somebody shovel.
Especially after this year. Mr. Hubbard, do you have any interest at all in the fall through road going through on the west side of this property? Yay or nay, or a little bit or a lot, or?
Haven't thought about it lately. This is sort of the first time I've seen the plat. And so maybe Chris and we can talk about, I don't know, and maybe Sean or Brian, I don't know.
So let the record say that John Hubbard has not thought about this much at all. I'm not sure what interest he's got in full public road going through there.
So you can look at it that you may have a window of opportunity, but a small window of opportunity if you wanted to look to the future. But otherwise, I think everybody's okay. Okay.
I think Scarlett.
Did you have something else, Scarlett?
Well, you kind of have to make a decision.
Yes,
Oh, we did make.
we're going to make a decision.
Because, well, no, it's not just you add a little bit. If you change that to a public street, you go back to the drawing board and redo the entire preliminary plat. And the stormwater won't be allowed where it is
Right.
because that'll be full of asphalt. And so it will come
Sidewalk,
back,
curb and gutter.
Yeah. right. And it will be, so stormwater will have to come back on these lots and stuff. So it's not just a matter of, I mean, I'm fine for you if all the players want to get together to do that.
Yeah.
But it's not something that they can have a discussion in the next 20 minutes and
Right.
decide. That would have to go back for engineering,
Right.
and truly you would start over with the preliminary plat. So
Yeah.
just so everybody knows that and I'm not opposed to it, I just want to make it clear that it's starting over.
Right.
So that we're dealing with public street and public improvements, and the storm pond will have to be taken up somewhere else.
Look different. Absolutely.
So Scarlett,
Great
if we approve this tonight, as the applicant has requested, can he speak with the neighbors and then come back with
He
a
could,
new application?
Understanding it would be a big thing. It would be like starting over.
yeah, that's all
And
I
all
want
of
to
that.
make sure
And so,
is that,
and we're here to, like Scarlett said, you know, our main focus is you and what you're coming here for. And I think it's great to look at all the other options and maybe even show you something that, talk about something that maybe you weren't aware of before. But we're here tonight looking at what you're asking for, and that's what we're gonna make a decision on. If the other neighbors want to do something different, then, you know, that's all outside of this. You're gonna have a yay or a nay from this body to move forward or whatever. And you'll have to make a decision if you in the middle decide to change something. So anyway,
And don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying a public road through there isn't a good idea.
Right.
It may be an excellent idea. But it does change, it will change this. It will have to come back. It's not like, oh, okay, well, it's just got to show those couple of buildings. That's a complete change that we would have to look at.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, the stormwater would have to be recalculated because now you've got more asphalt and you'd have to figure out the best place to house that new stormwater pond and which will impact one of those lots, which is, you know,
right.
that's why I said it's a little bit of a bigger deal.
Yeah.
But not, it might be the best deal. I'm not saying it's not a good idea. I'm just saying it's not a quick fix.
Well, you thoroughly confused me now, so thank you very much. Appreciate it. Appreciate it very much. So thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. All right. From kind of open it up to discussions of anybody yays or nays or other concerns that hasn't been talked about so far.
My inclination is to approve the preliminary plat that has been brought in front of us because it complies. It's a project that a private property owner wants to do that complies with our current laws and does not have any conflict with anything that's in our master plan in terms of there being a road there or anything like that. So my inclination is to approve it as is. And then if he's incentivized or there's a reason to redo the project and come back with a new preliminary plat, then that is his entitlement after cooperation with his neighbors. But as it is, I don't feel comfortable not approving it or changing something on the thought that there may be something on that 10, 20 years down the road.
Right. Great comment. Thank you. Anybody else? Any other comments?
I agree that I'm good with doing it the way that we want to, and I actually don't know that public road doesn't really connect to anything. It wouldn't connect to anything at this point, and there's not much for it to connect to the west or the east. So I'm good at just going forward with what we have.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't feel that comfortable with what we've got. Yes, short term, it works. Mr. Rosenthal, just so you know, I had somebody come try to do this next door to my house. They were leaving town for whatever reason. They were upside down. They owned it in a short time, and they wanted to get as much value out of it as possible. That, to me, is short-sighted for us. Not for you, but for us, it's short-sighted to say, okay, you want to do this. We can see you doing it. I like that. I like the idea of putting a road through there, a public road through there. Because if not, then there's going to be a public road through the Bindrups property anyway, I'm guessing. That's where it would end up, would be going through the property, especially if you brought your whole parcel to the city staff and they looked at it and they said, you really need some access there. That's just what I'm feeling. And so I don't like what I see here. I think it needs to be redone before I would approve.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Well, thank you. How do you feel? What are your thoughts?
I disagree with Brian. I mean, I get it. He's leaving town. He's going to subdivide his property, but he is within all the policies and laws, and It's his property, so if he has interest in people who want to purchase a lot, then I would support it. But I'm not voting, so.
Well, but it's, your input is still appreciated. Yeah. Really appreciated. Thank you. Shelley?
Yeah, I concur with a lot of these sentiments. I think that this is a reasonable plan. I think you've done some good work here. I'd be happy to live on one of those lots. But I do think that the city and the planning commission would, as we're planning ahead, I think that it's a great idea to potentially to put in a full roadway there. So if you could get together with your neighbors and see if that's something you all agree on, we would love to have you bring that back to us. But I think for now that we could approve this plat as written.
Thank you. I think all of those are great comments. And I think it's really up to the neighbors. I think you're fine to move forward with the things you want. You've met everything for this preliminary stage of it. And it's really up to them. If they're going to look to the future to benefit them, then they should contact you and go from there. All right.
Maybe you can also go back to your engineers and find out if there is somewhere else that they could put that retention pond that would work. If what it would look like if they did expand that roadway.
All right. Well, if everybody's okay, you got nothing, something
I
to
have
add?
one more. I'm having a hard time here. I'll just give you a second.
Sure.
Senior moment.
But you're a young senior.
Thank you.
The one in a real thing.
Scarlett, will this subdivision ever go before the city council? So this is interblock development. That doesn't have to, as long as it meets all the requirements and all the current code. Okay.
I have a,
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question, Scarlett. You know, the things from the state that they push down and so forth, and for us to do more things, is this gonna count for any of it?
October,
We will tell them that we went from 1 unit to 3
3
units sitting on there. So, but technically, probably,
Not based off their
Right.
dollar issues and things
Right.
they're after, but
Yeah.
nobody's gonna get that,
right.
get a value.
Yeah. And the reason why this isn't interblock development is because we have a specific definition for interblock development. And there has to be a block
Right.
for it to be interblock. And there is no blocks in this area.
I'm sorry. This is not interblock development,
No,
No,
even though the houses, even though the lots have no public access. The access is across private property, other neighbors' property. It's not in interblock development. What's it called? What's it considered then?
it's not interblock development in our definition, the way it's defined. So it's probably considered flag lots, but it's not
That's not a part of our code though.
interblock development. No,
Okay,
our code allows, if you can get access to a public street on a private drive, our code does allow that. As long as your lot meets the appropriate width at the setback at the setback line on your lot.
and
So,
the size of the lots and the
Right.
number of lots.
right, but the way our code defines inner block, there has to actually be a block that exists. And in this area, you don't have a grid system. So that's why it's not inner block.
is there code for flag lots? Do we have,
We don't,
we don't have any code for that?
no,
Okay,
we
Just wanna be clear.
just the way we define lots and access to lots. So,
It's kind of like the Danny McFarland piece. that was large enough for it to be 3 lots
Mhm.
and that kind of stuff that had the house on it and the lots behind it and stuff.
That one was,
He
that
didn't
one
have
was
to
not
even
in
come
a
to
block.
us because he met everything, just the way it was, that piece of property.
If you're curious, Brian, the definition of a block is a piece of land surrounded by streets or other rights of way other than an alley or land, which is designated as a block on any recorded subdivision plat.
The concern I've got is that when we've had interblock development or the word flag lot come up and there's been a public hearing involved, we get half the city here telling us they don't want it.
Not
Half-
so
we get-
much
it's-
anymore.
It's because this one's not a zone change.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying these lots are off the public way. When a lot is off the public way, there are a lot of things that affect the city for the next 100 years or longer. My house has been there 120 years. And if a lot does not have public facing house on it, if it's hidden, I bet most of you don't know where the flag lots are in town. The flag lots have no parking on them. The flag lots have no protection from their neighbors in case somebody is robbing them or there's a serious issue going on. There's a lot of bad things for flag lots. And what I'm saying is this is not flag lot. This possibly is a flag lot, but we don't have code for that. This is not an interblock development. That's why I'm concerned about the interblock development, is for the safety and the long term. I don't think that the town ought to be split up sideways like this. It's not what the city has been, and I don't think it's what the city should be in the future. I don't know why I'm not lecturing you. I'm sorry.
I
I
know.
did get on my stool there.
There are people that will argue that this is a very efficient method of developing because now you have 3 properties paying for 95 feet of frontage rather than just 1,
So
Where all
is
the
paying the key word then?
where all the public infrastructure is. I'm just saying there are some valid reasons for a city to consider interior lots.
Okay. Mr. Stott lives across the street from this property. And he's got some pretty good sized lots. He's got 2 of them. He didn't like living in the city. He wanted to live more rural. That's why he's out there. I don't think Mr. Stott has I think Mr. Stott is normal in that I don't think there ought to be flag lots in the city, any more flag lots in the city. I don't want this city turning into the island. The island is so whacked up, chopped up over there. You can't see half of the lots. You can't see half the houses from the front, from the main street.
I appreciate your viewpoint on
And-
that.
Thank you, Brian.
To be
Thank
fair,
you, Scott.
Brian, Mr. Stott appears to be on a
Flag.
type of flag lot.
He's got 2 lots there.
And then there's the behind and this. is
Oh, no. But he wanted to live rurally on a large lot. That lot that Mr. Rosenthal owns would sell for a decent price today.
Okay. I think all right. If everybody is okay, if nobody has any more questions for staff,
The applicant just
did you,
I apologize. I do have a comment if I may.
sure, come to the microphone, please.
If I misunderstood, I apologize. But, yes, we are subdividing for, a profit,
Right,
but it's, due to our family situation. Some of the situations our health insurance does not cover,
right.
that we need to address. And I don't know if that's.
Well, it's you don't
Otherwise, we
have
probably
to
keep
share it with us. I mean,
It's-
you're the property owner, you have a right to these.
So.
And you're within code and all that. But would,
Thank you.
And so I just wanted to, it probably is neither here nor there, so.
There's just a broader philosophical.
we're trying to look out 50 to 100 years in advance.
And-
And so I understand.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. All right, if everybody's okay, thanks for catching that, Shelley. I didn't see it. raising his hand. Thank you. I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the preliminary plat for the Pleasant View Lane subdivision, a 3-lot subdivision located in the general area of 417 North, 300 East, subject to the findings of fact, the conditions, and the what do we call it? This rule of law
Conclusions.
inside the planning, inside the staff report.
I have a motion to approve the subdivision as presented, the lot preliminary plan as presented. Do I have a second? I have a second by Bob Washburn, first by Tyler. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
The motion passes. Preliminary approval is given on the property. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. Yes,
Thank you.
to go get cookies. I
It
mean.
gets drier. It gets drier.
Okay. We will move on now to item number 2, the Hillcrest subdivision lot line adjustment. The Planning Commission will review, discuss, and may take action on a request for a lot line adjustment combining lots 15 and 17 in the Hillcrest subdivision. Far enough along down here. Okay, let me get it. Norman and Christy, that's you guys here, Phillipsy. Thank you very much. Okay, Scarlett, if you would be willing to come up and share with us a summary of what we're at.
Okay. This is, these folks own both of the parcels, and they are asking to combine them into one.
Bless you.
Again, we look to state code. We look to couple places. It defines a lot line adjustment in state code. It lists the requirements for lot line adjustments. And then it talks about our general plan and our master plan. We look at that. On this one, since I've also got the area regulations so that you can see that these lots are not, one of the things we can't do is approve a lot that would not be a legal lot in the zone that it's in. This one is in a unique area in the zone on the paper is R11. However, through the development process 15, 18 years ago when this, well, actually, I guess it's probably 20 now, when this subdivision was done, there was a change, and the developer had been given some approvals under the R112 zone, because that's the direction, that's what the general plan was calling for, and that's what we were moving along. When they actually came for the change at the actual zoning hearing, the council at that time decided that maybe they would rather not follow the general plan and they would make it 1 acre lots. And the developer contested that, and the city realized with the help of the property ombudsman that we had let the developer go too far in the process based on the R11, or I mean, based on the R112. And so even though this property is zoned R11, this property is not considered a non-conforming use because it was, the development was allowed to go in as R112. So what they're doing doesn't, even though it doesn't meet actual R11 zone, it meets the zone that the development was allowed to proceed under. The proposed lot line adjustment will not result in a violation of any land use law. The framework map suggests the preferred scenario for this area is neighborhood residential. The proposed lot line adjustment indicates all lots meet or exceed the minimum of 12,000 square feet, and the lot widths meet or exceed the required 95 feet. One of the things that we've had several of these lot line adjustments come in, or these lot combinations. They're pretty common, and one of the reasons why that's happening is because in our code, the principal structure on the lot has to be a residential structure, which is a house. And so you can't build, even though you own both the lots, you can't build a detached garage on the second lot because it's still a lot. And so it has to have a residential structure. So people are combining so that they can utilize both their properties in that manner. Now, there's pros and cons to that. One of the things the planning commission has to look at two things for a lot line adjustment. You have to make sure that it's in the best interest of the public and that it doesn't violate any rules. And so that's what you will look for. And it doesn't violate any of the rules as far as the zoning code goes. So.
But does it, because of the zoning technically being R11? You said that this does not fit into R11, right? Which
The whole subdivision doesn't.
some of the surrounding neighborhoods.
No, the whole surrounding neighborhood is either R112 or I think there's an ag. Nope, it was changed. So the surrounding neighborhood is R112.
Could you tell us more? You said there are pros and cons. So what are the cons of combining?
The development was intended to have a lot there. People anticipate that there will be a house there. So it changes the look of the development just a bit. I'm not saying necessarily that's con, but it's not with the original development pattern. So. But
To add on to that, some things to think about is, and it's not that it's one, it's that if one becomes many, and that's what, so don't mistake my comment for this particular lot. But if one becomes many of these, the development was designed to have a certain water, sewer capacities. And at that point, if you don't have the house that is the tax base to pay for those, and you have it turned into a lot which doesn't collect that, which doesn't recoup and pay for those things, or the connection or the impact fee, or all the different fees that are associated with a housing, that's a con. The plus to it is it's open space. It's a garage. They can have lots more open space and a smaller footprint than a house would probably be. But that's what she means. Some of that pros and cons. There is a tax base difference. There is a development difference. There is, at that point, whatever the reasons why it was divided up into development and housing units in that size, this puts it at twice the size of a lot, and which maybe is an imbalance to the rest of the lots. You mentioned the state. If we get a credit for the last vote you had, and this one goes in favor, this is that you've offset yourself of any kind of credit that either one of those went. So just well,
that's true.
and then if it's an ADU, why not? Then you're just limiting yourself to 1,200 square foot to the building. Might as well leave it as a residential lot and not have the restriction of your, I mean, then you have a bigger size potential, but you're right. I mean, it could be anyway, but anyway, just to add fuel to that. So
But lot line adjustments are legal under
Right.
state code. They do have their purpose. They do have rules that they follow, and the Gillespies have provided the information that they need to follow the state code.
And
rules.
more and more of those. We had one just not that long ago,
Right.
being allowed for Airbnb to be on their property. Combine the two lots that made it one, so things like that could happen. So, okay.
Okay.
Anyone else? Any questions for
Well,
Scott?
I just have a comment. One of the things you said that it's our responsibility is to look out for the right thing for the community. Right? And so I'm painfully aware of a situation near where I live where a lot was combined and like this, and then a building was built. Steel frame building. It was totally out of place in the residential neighborhood. And a lot of people have contacted me and members of the city council and said, how did they do that? We didn't know this was going to happen. And so, you know, we don't know what's going to happen. I don't believe they're required to tell us, right?
Right.
Other than that they've indicated they want to have an accessory building, which is not an accessory dwelling.
Correct.
And so, you know, from my standpoint, we don't have input from the community, the neighbors, that what's going to happen there, and then all of a sudden something can happen in all the neighborhoods. Excited about it or unhappy about it? You know what I mean? How do we determine if something is good for the community if the community doesn't get a chance to?
I think that's a different code. And what you need to really look at is the accessory building code, the part that deals with accessory buildings. And if you feel like there's some things that we need to change regarding accessory buildings to make them more compatible within a neighborhood, then that's the code we need to look at. Allowing people to combine their lots under the state code, the way it's written, that's just written into the code, the state code. But if we want to be a little bit more secure in what people do with those lots, then we need to write that into the other part of the code, that we need to change the size of accessory buildings, or we need to add a statement in there that they need to be similar to how it's written for accessory dwelling units, that they need to be similar in architecture feature to the principal dwelling. I think that's how it reads, something like that. But that's probably a very good idea, but that's not this code. That's a different code that we need to look at to change.
That's not what we're here to do.
Right.
We have to make a
Not
decision.
tonight, yeah, but that is something that if you feel strongly about the accessory buildings that we have, then that would be a different code to write. So.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, we don't have to make a decision tonight. It says we may take action on it. We could ask for more information or things like that.
But what would you deny it on?
Well,
Just
I wouldn't deny, yes, you will.
You will.
You will, absolutely. So, well, we wouldn't deny it if we, all I'm saying is that
if we don't take action,
if we don't take action, it's considered a denial. Is that what you're saying?
Well, you can continue it.
That's my thought. We could continue it if we needed more information. You asked, you know, so yes, we it's not a situation where we stop and we go change code and then come back to the code is here, this is what it is, and this is why we're here. So anyway. we're just-
Okay,
Yeah.
the background information mentions what the Gillespies want to do with this property in the future.
Mhm.
But the question in hand is strictly a lot line adjustment. Is that
It's
correct?
strictly combining the two lots. It's
Right.
Two lots,
moving the
no
one
building,
lot and turning them into two.
doesn't matter what they're gonna do with it. Just that they would like the lot line adjusted, two lots put together. Okay.
Yes, that's the question at hand.
I'm curious, Scarlett, if when you do decide, or, you know, when it is decided to put in the accessory.
Building.
Yes, buildings. Do you as a city look at the CCNRs, or is the property owners in the neighborhood are responsible for those?
They are. We do tell the property owners when they come in, we tell them, we say, is there anything in your CCNRs that would prohibit this? But no, the city does not have the authority to enforce CCNRs. We certainly try and respect them, but we can't enforce them. We don't have that authority.
That's an excellent point. Thank you. That had crossed my mind as well, that if the CCNRs are more restrictive, then that would maybe put it to rest, and that would indicate what the community wants, if we understood what the CCNRs are. If they, what they,
That should not logic follow,
no,
because the
Well-
developer did put the CCNRs
well,
on originally.
if the CCNRs say it has to be a residence, then this doesn't make a lot of sense to
Right, a residential building,
and
Has
put
to
a,
be.
and put a barn in there, right? But maybe, I mean,
you got nothing against barns, do you?
no, I don't,
Okay, good.
absolutely.
But in some cases, and there is one actually nearby this neighborhood where it certainly appears that the accessory building is larger than the home.
I own one of those. My accessory building is larger than my home.
But I mean, I think of the neighbors and how that may affect.
Right, but like I said, that's a different ordinance that we need to look at. That's not the lot line adjustment or combining lots. That's the process they're following that process. But if you are uncomfortable about our detached accessory buildings, then we need to start looking into that.
Is that something
ordinance
we can-
as to,
For the staff to maybe prepare, or do we need to, how do we proceed with that process?
You can have Michael do something on that. But if you're going to have us, the staff prepare something, the more defined we don't want to be in the dark of what you want to do. We're guessing the better defined you want us to do, the better we can do our job. But if it's the fluffier it is, we might bring you something that you aren't thinking.
Maybe what we do is show it as a study item for us at one of our next meetings, that we can give us time to really look at the code, determine how we interpret that and understand it to be. So then we can discuss it and then come request with the staff. Here's where we see some gray area or no gray areas, everything is great, let's leave it as it is.
and actually, I think I misspoke. I got the amended plat law confused with the lot line law. The lot line law does not make you do those two. You have to make sure that they are compliant with the zoning ordinances, but you don't have to do the good cause. That's with
They
the,
don't have to.
that's with the amended plat. So I
apologize.
apologize. This lot line law is new to us.
Yeah.
They changed the code this year to make it very specific that lot line adjustments are not amended plats. And so, so I apologize. I fell back on my past experience.
And our item of concern tonight is these two lots owned by these individuals, they want to combine it as one. That's the thing that we're.
And if you do that, then that gives them different rights on that piece than there is today. So it is an issue of that lot was platted as a residential lot. You are changing rights at that point. So while you may not have to give just cause, you just need to understand that there is different rights that are had when a lot is a larger lot than it is a residential lot, because you are removing the restriction of having a residential home on that lot. That's what this does is removes the condition of having a primary residential structure.
So, and by doing it, we have no control over, other than building code, meaning building code and zoning codes for what they do with it.
That's correct. If you've removed the restriction, then they have the rest of the laws to follow. So good or bad, I just wanted to be clear that what you're doing by removing the lot line and combining lots is removing the restriction of a residential structure or primary residential structure on a lot. Good or bad, that's up to you guys to determine.
There are some restrictions.
Yes.
Sure, absolutely.
But
They've got to meet those, the code for the accessory building.
They do that.
That's gotta go through the staff,
Through the building department and all of that.
but we're not addressing that today.
Right.
We're addressing whether we would do it, because they could say, if they'd have left that line out and say, we just want a nice yard, bigger yard, let our kids play, dogs run around. No, we wouldn't be talking about an accessory building. We would just, it would be, are we gonna eliminate the lot, and are we going to change the thing of it? So, and if the accessory building allowed for a 40-foot barn, high barn that could be painted red, then that could be what ends up on that corner. So, or
I'll vote for that one. I like tall red barns.
Yeah. If the code allowed,
if the code allowed,
that wouldn't
So can I,
work. but-
yes.
I just want to make sure that I'm clear on this then. So they're within all the policies and rules and regulations. So we have no justification to say no. And there's not, we don't hold a public hearing to find out what the neighbors think about what happens to that lot, because they all think there's going to be a home. So they could be upset, but we don't announce it to them. This isn't something that we tell them ahead of time, hey, just so you know, we're having a meeting and there might be a big red barn built there or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, that's right, correct?
Other than the justification, there isn't a justification of one way or the other. It is a choice. You're gonna make the choice. You don't have to make it yes or no. You get to make a choice, and your choice is that you're removing the residential requirement on a lot. You're going from 2 lots to 1, and you're in that primary lot. So yes, it checks all the boxes, and you can certainly vote yes. You can certainly vote no. It does. There are some that, like a conditional use, you must vote yes and then add the conditions. There isn't a no vote, but this one is you do have a choice of yes or no. I don't want you to feel like you have to choose one or the other. It is really your choice of yes or no. But just be aware, you can't get into defining what the accessory unit is, because that's not what this is. You can't you can't change the laws of what they could do without it. You either vote yes or no on allowing to remove the lot and remove the residential structure on it or not.
So
But you can vote yes or no.
basically, again, I'm not a voting member. But if we voted, if the commission voted yes, obviously they add the lot and they now have a bigger lot. They have one lot and it's bigger. If they vote no, I mean, I feel like there should be a justification for why you vote no.
You don't have to do that. It's not a requirement.
You don't have to give it.
Because they,
I
You
feel
might
like
want
I should
to,
have a, I
but-
should have a reason.
but
to
they're
say
left
no.
with this, if you vote no, they're left with the same rights they came in with. You haven't changed or altered their rights. You haven't done anything that justifies. Now, you may certainly want to know why. I mean, if I were them, I would want to know why. I would certainly want to know why if you turn me down. But at that point, if you say no, they leave with the same rights they came in with. There was no adding or removing of right. That's the same thing with a rezone. You can say yes or no. And if you say no, they leave with the same rights they came in with. So at that point, I just want you to know that you do have yes or no rights, that you can pick either one. Why? I would certainly be interested if I were them. If you said no, I'd certainly want to know why. No.
Then the law says. That if you don't like just go talk to your council, if you don't like it. It's pretty clear
What we should do, what we are supposed to do.
It is.
Well,
But-
the other thing I would say, just for you two out there, Norman and Christie, is this is kind of how the process works. That we listen to what all is there, try to understand the code, look at what's happened. And the one reason, to a degree, kind of why this was brought up, is we've had people come in to request a rezone of a piece of property. And that it could be this zone would allow you to do multiple things. But I'm going to just do this. But what if that guy we rezone it and he walks out and he sells it to somebody else that has the right now to do a lot more than what we were told he was gonna do. And so that's always something that worries me in the back of my mind is, that kind of scenario. It's not a lot line adjustment, nothing like that, but because again, the public doesn't hear about it. If a red barn goes up or a carnival stand, I'm telling you, the neighbors, nobody likes me anyway, but they would really not like me after that. But I understand. So, and you're going to come next so that we can understand just what you want to do. You could tell us, you don't have to tell us. We know what the law and the code says that we have an obligation to do. And so unless we see any reason why we shouldn't or anything like that. And I think a strong point is we respect property owners' rights, and that kind of thing. So I don't want you to think it's just lopsided. We get to the balance the other way, and yours may be a lot quicker than the other way. But so if anybody doesn't have anything else for starters,
I got one more clarification question, just to make sure I understand. So if we approve this, and then some point say, maybe we don't want it that barn, let's build a house there. They can't do that because they can't sell these,
They would have to come in and subdivide.
or subdivide and then have a house, then you can sell them as separate units. So just back and forth and.
Correct.
All right, no, I just wanted to make sure I understood that that's the way it's supposed to be.
And we talked about that. They've thought about this for quite some time, because we did talk about the ramifications of when you combine the lot, then you do lose the ability to just sell that piece of property or to build a house on that piece of property other than the 1,200 square foot ADU, which doesn't mean that they couldn't do that. In addition to their detached building, they would have room to put a ADU on there, and they could do that, but they couldn't sell that back piece without coming in and subdividing.
And clarification of that same point, Ryan, you mentioned, and Charlie, you just mentioned as well, if that lot line is moved, they lose the right to build a residential home, but they gain the right to put an accessory dwelling in there. Because right now they cannot put an accessory dwelling. That's correct, isn't it?
They can't put an accessory dwelling on that.
On the
That
second
lot.
lot.
second lot,
Right. So by moving it, they lose one and they gain the other. They lose one right and they gain another right. Okay, thanks.
And Ryan, I just want to, I'm a little confused here. So you say that we can make the choice, yes or no. Tyler says by law, we have to say yes. Do you concur with that?
I don't.
No, wait a minute. This is Ryan, he's staff. We're the planning commission and we make decisions. So be careful about taking, and this is not facetiously, because Ryan and I have talked about this many times. Don't take their opinions blank as a blank check. They are to help us do our job as a planning commission.
I wish Joe was here, the legal process.
I just, so where I was coming from on that, and I'm not a lawyer, but our conclusions of law references Utah Code annotated 10-9A-6085. So it's lot line adjustment will not result in a violation of any land use law. The next line of that, subsection B, so 6085B, says that the land use authority shall approve a lot line adjustment under subsection 5A if the exchange of title will not result in a violation of any land use ordinance. So to me, that seems pretty clear that we shall approve this as long as it doesn't violate any land use ordinance.
Okay.
As a citizen, that's how I.
Right.
interpret the law.
Right. Yes, so we're here for them. Yes, are we all ready? Are we through? Yes, please, come on up.
They're gonna build a swimming pool.
Well, maybe not all of us.
Hello, my name is Norman Gillespie, my wife Chris. We moved to Providence about 15 years ago. We purchased that home 4 years ago. We purchased it with the thought of maybe selling it to our daughter because she had her grandson in a wheelchair, and it's a single level tile house, right? They wanted to buy it. They lived just down the street. They couldn't swing it at the time, so I thought, well, I'll buy this if you want it. Fine. Not a little quick history. The house is in phase 1. Okay. Guy built the house, lived there a year, sold it to somebody else. They developed the next street, phase 2. The guy didn't want a neighbor right on top of him. He bought the lot, fenced it all as one huge yard, put in an orchard. Okay. I knew he wanted to sell it all together. Other people were trying to bid on just the house because it was 2 parcels. And I just bought the whole thing. Thinking that I probably wouldn't stay there very long. It's a very nice home. We just retired last year, single level, no stairs anywhere. Beautiful, nice piece of property. It's a great yard for our grandkids to play in. But I need more garage space. Okay, there are CCNRs. I fully intend to follow those. Okay, there are outbuildings all over the place up there, all over this city. It's going to be a nice looking building that fits the neighborhood. So I don't see there's any issue with that, right? We may in the future build the what do they call it?
Accessory dwelling.
Accessory dwelling. Yeah.
Yeah.
For us, for a rental, who knows? But
Yeah.
I mean, that would provide more tax base, but whatever, that's down the road. That's something we thought of. In the meanwhile, I just want a garage. I own the property. It's a fully developed neighborhood. There's sidewalks, water, and infrastructure, everything's there. I don't think what I intend to do is can change the shape of the neighborhood, the character of the neighborhood. The CCNRs, like I say, we intend to follow them. We've tried to contact the developer to get his input on that. He won't respond to phone calls, emails, letters. So I'm going to follow him because a neighbor might, if I were to live next door, I would want my neighbor to
do what we agreed on when we bought the property, right? So.
Well, you have a copy of those CCNRs, you have that information.
And it does not say that, it says there needs to be a main home before an outbuilding.
Right.
Exactly like Providence Code. Right? That's why we want to do this.
Well, and that fence has been up from you giving the back history there. It's been up for several years then, right?
Yeah, as soon as he bought
Yeah,
that lot, he fenced it
fenced
all
that
as
whole
one.
thing.
I mean, it's like one big,
Yeah.
and the house on the next street up is
Yeah.
the same way. He owns both lots.
And it won't change the look of the outside.
If you'll just state your name,
Oh, my name is Chris Gillespie.
thank you.
So it will, I mean, we're not,
Right,
that fence all the way around that property, it's gonna stay there. So it's not really gonna look any different. It's all landscaped on the backside,
right.
you know, on the other, with the 30-foot setback with the.
I was up there today and it does. It looks like it's just one piece of property,
Right.
one big piece of property.
And
So
so,
the
you know,
structure,
if we-
you know, will be seen, right, above the fence.
Not
Well,
much
yeah.
From the street above.
I mean, it'll be visible if we intend to put a garage there, you know, but it'll fit. Yeah. Probably so, you know, so, but. I mean, we're trying to follow the rules, right?
Right.
That's why we came started a year ago. What can we do? So.
Well, and it's a great idea. We're glad to have you in the community and in the city. And it's your property and you have the rights and you looked at and realized we're gonna give up this, but we will have to be able to do these things and that's your choice. So I appreciate it. Anything else you'd like to share with us?
I wanna get rid of all my
Yeah.
Oh, we got a yay and a nay here.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we thought about just building another house and selling the other house and moving up there,
Yeah.
but. Yeah, it's just a nice piece of property. I like living there. I don't want to grow up.
Anybody comments or questions they have for the village?
Tax consequences, have you calculated the tax
I
consequences?
have
yet?
not, I have not.
Good, I just wanted to know yay or nay, because that's important.
I mean, my taxes just went up on that part, that second parcel.
Yeah,
Yeah, and so they like doubled this last year.
right, I think,
So when I combine it back to the other one, I'm thinking it's gonna make that one less, but then I'm gonna improve it, so it will, it's what it is. I can't control it.
well, I just
Yeah, I
I
thought
just
of it.
wanted
I
to
thought
know
of
if
it
it was a primary objective of this whole thing or not.
No, no.
And I, like,
No.
and what I thought it was gonna be, just what you said, yeah, there's gonna be something there, but it's not gonna be,
Yeah,
it's not important.
either way, I mean,
Because it's not big.
I guess if I built a home there, the tax values would go up and you have a point there, yeah. It's gonna drive more tax in the city, but. Yeah.
And big red barns do look really, really.
And
good.
there is one right across the
Across the
street,
street.
a giant red barn. Yeah, what's their name?
That's a real big one.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It's
beautiful, isn't it?
It's nice, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that's
Let's
what
put them
I'm
in the
starting to
case.
say. There are outbuildings. There's a very large one. They got a 20-foot sidewalk. It's a beautiful building, but
It's not in this zone, though. It's a completely different.
it is,
zone.
it
Yeah.
is, but it's quarter of a mile from my house. So
Yeah.
it's not like I'm doing something that's, there are buildings all over
The guy
that.
that has the two lots. Yeah. And then to the north. Is that
Thanks
really out? the
very much.
barn is?
Yeah, there's.
Well, back over there, that's all. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, across the road and behind that row of houses. Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate it. If anybody amongst ourselves, any concerns, issues? Any questions that we want to talk about? If everybody feels comfortable, then I would entertain a motion.
I just feel like I didn't quite get my question answered, and I know it's just a consult, but Ryan, I was curious on your thoughts regarding, you know, the no option.
I'm not an attorney. I'm gonna leave that to the interpretation of the chair.
Okay. From the code that Tyler's read to us, I think it spells it out real clear. And Tyler asked Scarlett, does this
Violate.
any ordinance? And if it does not, then then I think this is an option that they have the right to do. Right, and what our responsibility is. That's my interpretation of it. And what will be interesting is if you violated the CCNRs and did some wild, crazy thing, then they'll come after us because they'll say you allowed them to do it. You know, even though, you understand, and that's not my issue. I don't care. I don't care about that, but I think we need to maybe visit some of these things. Maybe, I don't know. You have a right to do it. No, right, we're not. Yeah, right. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
To be fair, just
Yep.
Tyler's not a lawyer either, so there may be other,
Yeah,
other codes
Yeah.
or other laws in place.
yeah. So you got to make your own judgment. That's why you're here, because you all are super great decision makers. And so anybody, any other questions or any concerns?
I just want to make sure that we do come back. It seems like we all are kind of in agreement of looking at that, and maybe at that code a little more in depth.
Accessory
Of the
building.
accessory buildings, yeah.
Okay, because we have no control over CCNRs, but we do have control over that type of the accessory building. So if we could add it, Tyler, as a study item, maybe for one of our next meetings, to give us time to all research and study that out. And then we can maybe define it, but it's not going to hold us up here. Okay,
Oh,
yeah, so that's something different for us.
oh, okay.
So, okay, so.
Well,
From your point of view, this is going really smoothly.
doesn't feel like it.
Yes. Yes. go
While
ahead.
you're talking about study items, would it make sense at all to change the zone of this? What it's-
Get into the spot zoning, which is not a good thing.
Well,
Well, and it was an issue that was
Then there's no
resolved
zone.
years ago.
well, there's an issue right now that it's zoned one thing and it's being
Built out.
used differently. And that's confusing. And if we ever lose Scarlett or anybody who knows history, nobody's gonna understand what the heck.
I would suppose that change will happen the next time the general plan is reviewed, updated, and the map. Then the general plan could do that. Otherwise, we wait for property owners to ask. Other than general plan amendments, generally rezones are requested at the property owner discretion. But at a general plan or general plan amendments, they can do rezones through that general plan process, but most happen through a ownership application process. So it would be normally them asking to have it rezoned to match that, rather than us taking that on independent of a general plan refresh and update. So.
This is a very unusual circumstance though, right? Where the city, there were some, so is there a point where we can say, hey, we probably should make this right? The way that.
I would say that would probably be the general plan update at some point. We just have updated the general plan the last couple of years, and we normally wouldn't see that for another few years.
We're just gonna assess this piece.
They show it as being changed from R11, I believe, on our general plan map. I'd have to go back and look, but they didn't go through the process to actually do a zone change.
Right, so if it's on the general plan as the way it should be, then isn't that something we should correct?
There's two different ways on a general plan. One is as is, and what is as it sees in the future to be.
This is on the future.
Right. So at that point, the as is could be changed through a general plan process, but it is a process, and the as we would expect it to be. I think that's what Scar was talking about is we would expect it to be, but the actual as is map
wasn't changed on that. Could have been, but wasn't. So, and we wouldn't see that. I mean, at this point, they have the rights they have. As long as they continue, it doesn't change it for them. Yeah, it's a cleanup process that we'll probably get in the next general plan update.
Do we have any trouble where there's a conflict where this lot line adjustment would not fit with the R11, which is the actual zoning?
Well, no, because none of the lots fit with the R11. This lot line adjustment actually makes it closer to fitting to the R11 than the other way. So all of,
But it's too small to fit into the R11?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, okay.
yeah,
But I think it's something that gets addressed when we do a master plan update and reassessment,
general plan.
Yeah. general plan, I'm sorry. Which could be when others here may be leading the charge on that.
5 or 6
So
years.
don't be missing any
5 or 6
meetings.
years.
So anyway, all right. Let's let the Gillespie's breathe a little easier here. So if we would, I would entertain a motion regarding this item of a lot line adjustment, combining lots 15 and 17.
I propose, if Shelley will help me get the words correct, that we approve lot line adjustment for parcels,
For lots 15 and 17.
lots 15 and 17 of the Hillcrest development. Parcels number 219 and 15 and 219 and 17. According to the findings of fact, conclusions of law,
Okay.
and conditions, and staffs,
In the staff report.
and the staff report. Sorry, that's so hard for some.
Teamwork.
We have a motion to approve by Brian Marble. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Tyler Riggs. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passed. Thank you very much. And I appreciate your patience. Patience very much.
Learning experience. I was listening to this first item, I'm thinking, boy, I didn't waste no further.
If we were to do them every week or 3 a week, no big deal.
Yeah.
But we think about it and things change over time.
Oh, yeah, yeah, no, we appreciate it, we very much appreciate it. It's been a very educational experience, and we appreciate the complexity and zoning laws and the reason for them.
Well, we're just trying
That's what
to,
the work you guys do.
thank you very much. And the staff,
Thanks.
staff does a tremendous amount.
Thank you.
All right. We'll move on to item number 3, the Providence Spring Cluster Development Final Plat. The Planning Commission will review, discuss, and may take action on approving the final plat for the Providence Springs Cluster Development. And so let me get back here. I believe we have Jody with us, right? So thank you for being here. I just need to get back here and pull this up. And then I would invite Scarlett, if she'll wouldn't mind coming up to give us an overview and summary of what the staff feels is the status.
Okay, so this one, we did look at the amended subdivision code. And even though Jody is doing a lot of lot line adjustments, the one thing that really triggers this to be an amended subdivision is he's actually changing the dimension of the subdivision just a little, the exterior perimeter of the subdivision just a little bit. And he does have the petitioners, or excuse me, the Mountain View Retirement Community did sign the petition. So both parties involved have signed the petition, which takes it out of the requirement for public hearing. So we're fine that way. He's amending 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 11, 12 lot lines or 12 lots within. He's changing the lot lines a little bit. He's not changing setbacks or things like that. He's changing the lot lines to allow for the position of the different types of homes. Some will fit better than others with these changes. And so I'll let Jody go into the details of that. But this has been through review. Max did not have any additional comments, nor did Aaron. The master plan, it followed everything, as far as the master plans and the general plans, where it's just changing the lot lines. It's still incorporating all of the things that the original subdivision did. So it's following our guidelines there. The land use authority, this is the one that you do have to look at now. No public street or municipal utility easement has been vacated or amended. A municipal utility easement is different than a public utility easement. But there's no, even their private streets aren't being changed. So, but there's no public street and no municipal utility easement that's being vacated or amended in these changes. So the thing that you do need to decide, and that's where you can have Jody come up and talk to you about his reasoning, is that there is good cause for the vacation or the amendment. So this one is one that you do get to weigh in on, is this really a good idea for us to change this? So in our conclusions, it just talks about that the city has enacted the ordinances for requiring subdivision plats comply with the provision of the municipalities ordinances and the provisions of Utah Code Title 10, Chapter 9A, Section 6. The Planning Commission is the appropriate land use authority to consider and approve an amended final plat. And then it talks about that we're staying consistent with the original subdivision, so we're staying consistent with the general plan and master plans. The documents submitted with the amended final plat meet the requirements in Utah Code 10 9A 608. We talked about prior to approving it, you need to find the good cause, and the proposed plat meets the drawing requirements listed in Providence City Code 1133. And so the only conditions that we have on this one is prior to approving an amended final plat, the Planning Commission must find there is good cause for the amendment and that no public street or municipal easement is being vacated or amended. Also, the applicant will continue to meet all relevant federal, state, county, and Providence City rules, laws, codes, ordinances. Approval by the city of any application or paperwork submitted does not alleviate the owners and or their agents from their responsibility to understand and conform to local, state, and federal laws. Providence City's approval is not intended to and cannot be construed to allow any laws to be violated. So just quick sideline. This, I am working on subdivision amendments for Senate bill or House bill. I can't remember which one it is, but anyway, it's 174. Planning Commission's role in subdivisions will change. You will be involved in preliminary plat, probably, but not final plats anymore. So you'll see them for the next few months, but then we will have to make a change. That's because state code changed and made that very clear that city councils, we didn't have our city council involved, but many communities did have city councils involved all through the subdivision process. City councils can't be involved at all. we are allowed to be able to have the planning commission involved in the preliminary plat, but not the final plat. So you will be seeing those changes come, but for right now, you are the appropriate authority to see this.
So that will move on to the land use authority.
Administrative land use authority, not city councils. City councils aren't involved in subdivisions at all anymore.
Sorry,
The final plat goes to administration.
where's it changing from and to? It's taken away from the planning commission
And it's going to staff.
staff, okay.
And an administrative land use authority that's made up of, well, it talks about the people that it's made up of, and there may or may not be a planning commission member on that. Right now, it's not, it's a staff, it's the community development director, the city engineer, and the public works director. Well,
And they approve the final.
not yet, but that's coming. So, but for right now, you are the approving authority.
The planning commission, the city council will still do rezone stuff.
Right.
The-
This is
the
just
legislature, this is
subdivision.
just subdivision. Thank you.
Question.
Oh,
Sorry.
wait.
With this subdivision, we previously had some discussion around the setbacks and give us the small lots. Do these lot line adjustments make any impact on that? Or maybe that's something Jody can address. Council Force.
It still meets the requirements of the original one with the setbacks, but Jody can address as to why he feels like this is important to do.
Thank you,
Oh,
Scott.
wait, Scarlett,
Well,
I'm just kidding. warmed up. What kind of easement change was it that is gonna take place? It looks like the.
Oh, I
the
said there
rear
is
easement-
no municipal easement, but there may be some other easements, but
Right.
not a municipal easement.
Okay,
And the
so-
plat, one of the findings is that there's no public road that's going to be vacated or amended, and no municipal easement that's going to be vacated and amended. And in this particular subdivision, they do have some public utility easements, but they don't have any municipal utility
Okay.
easements.
So there will be some easements taking place. but
There may.
That's not up to us.
The utility companies see that when they sign the final plat.
And then this lot line change, it looks like on the west side of the plat, there, it puts it right up against the curb and gutter of the property sold or whatever, change hands, money change hands, and it's gonna put it right on the curb. And will that mean that the individuals that have homes in this new subdivision, will they receive access to the rear of their property because there's now officially a road there?
Well,
Didn't ask-
just because the property line is right next to the private road
Yeah.
does not mean that this development has access to the private.
Okay,
road.
it's a private road.
It's a private.
Okay, I thought it was
it's-
public.
No,
Sorry.
it's a private road.
Thanks. That's all I have.
I just have one more question, and maybe I'm missing something, 'cause I mean, I know we've looked at this and seen this before, but where we've just reviewed these other ones. I'm not seeing a retention pond in this subdivision. Is it, am I just missing it?
It's a whole, it looks like a lot.
Where it says like remainder parcel, is that it?
31.
Lot 31 is actually the retention pond. So if you go to the T, back in and then the east part of the T, that's lot 31.
Oh, yeah. okay.
Isn't the half of the development a retention pond?
Half of the development is the wetland area and the pond, so,
Why does it not say? I'll see.
okay.
The fine print.
Anything else?
Anything else?
I have nothing. Right now, Scarlett.
Would
Okay,
you like to sing a song?
no songs.
All right, thank you. Jody, would you mind coming up and sharing with us your thoughts and helping us with any questions we may have?
I'm Jody Robbins. I'm the developer of the property. Two things I want to go over, the just cause for doing it, and then kind of a more detailed description of why we're here doing this. The west line of the subdivision, I've been working with the Mountain View, the existing Mountain View retirement community, and they had a desire for us to put up a fence right on their street and take care of a hedge that was there and do some other things to benefit them. And they wanted us to take over that land because they didn't have any use for it. So the lots 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, that's why they're being adjusted, is just to incorporate that land that they quitclaim deeded over to us, and there's no money was exchanged hands. We're putting up a fence, took out a shrub. They're getting what they wanted. We're getting the land for it. The other adjustments, we'll start with lot 24 up in the top left corner. Our buyer of that lot, you guys might know him, Rowan Cecil, selected a specific floor plan that when we designed this out initially, we didn't have the exact floor plans designed out. And the only thing that's changing is kind of the hinge point in the center of the back of the lot. It used to be off to the left-hand side a little bit. Yeah, just sliding it over a little bit to even that lot out a little bit. And that small 4-foot adjustment makes the floor plan he desires fit on that. A very similar thing with lot 22, we were 2 feet too shallow. So we've pushed the back lot line of lot 22 back 2 feet. And that made it so lot 18 was no longer 6,000 square feet. So we had to make adjustments across those lot lines in order to cross the lot line behind lots 21, 20, and 19. We pulled that to the south 4 feet in order to give enough space to lot 17 and lot 18 to meet the municipal code. So it looks like a lot of changes, but they're actually really simple changes, really small changes, 1 to 4 feet on the interior lots, and then just adding that space from the Mountain View retirement community onto those other lots. We did not change any utility easements. We did not change, we didn't change any roads. We didn't change any curb. We didn't change anything. The one other thing that's changing with this is our address bar box. It's always been Springs Circle and Springs Lane. The address box was Providence Springs Circle and Providence Springs Lane. So people would say they live at 5 East Providence Springs Lane, Providence, Utah. It's a mouthful. So we corrected that to match what the drawing said. So it's Providence Springs, or so it's Springs Lane and Springs Circle. The just cause for making these adjustments is really giving the public, the people that are purchasing this, giving them what they want. They've selected specific floor plans. They know what they want, and none of the changes limit other lots. None of the changes make other lots less buildable. So all of the changes just increase the buildability, call that a word, of the lots, and kind of give the buyers what they're asking for. Lot 18 or lot 22, that person has already said which plan they want. It was a 2-foot adjustment on the lot in order to make that fit properly. And that caused all the other lot adjustments. So
Okay. That sounds good. I would also add to your just cause, not only for the homeowner benefits, but for neighboring properties. The neighbor
Yes.
you helped in taking that in and doing some stuff for them that benefited that as well.
And
So-
then the community,
And the
Yeah,
you
community.
guys get along and have some mutual.
it's not very often that that the developer seems to be on good terms with the neighbor, and I absolutely love working with the Mountain View retirement community. We actually had some gatherings where they were able to put input into things they would like to see just as market research for us. And we got a lot of really, really good information from them on what they would like to see as a 55 and older demographic. And we're able to incorporate a lot of those into the development. So it's been great.
Well, with Brother Cecil, you can even say over 80.
It's
88 and
true.
older demographics.
You must all like that. other than looking in-
Well, yeah, that may be true too.
No one will be looking. in
Because
the-
he moved it.
Hopefully they're not all, you're not coming in every time and making another 50.
No, we actually, with this one, after initial approval, when we went through and actually had the final floor plans, we've gone through and laid them out on most of the lots and made, like, one of the adjustments, lot 17 used to be 71 feet wide instead of 72.5 feet wide. So in this adjustment, we were able to do that. And with the 20-foot setback on the side of that one, it makes it so we need it to be a lot wider than it was so that we can meet all of the setbacks and meet Providence City Code. So I only want to do this once, and we knew we had to do it with bringing the other portion in. So
Sounds good.
Great, it's like a puzzle. Right? And you were fitting it all in there.
I tell a lot of people, development is just a puzzle, where it's taking your guys' input, which it's because of you guys that it's actually 55 and older development. But taking all the input from you guys, the community, the city code, the state code, fire code, and figuring out what you can do with it based on all of that. So
Looks good. Looks good. Anybody, any other questions for Jody before we let him go?
No, I got a comment. We'll do it later.
Thank you, Jody.
thank you all.
All right. What does everybody think about these things? They look minor and I like the idea of that. Not every time you sell a home, we may have to come back in for an adjustment.
Oh, I think Jody enjoys it.
So,
So it sounds like you're very good to your buyers.
I appreciate the work you're going through on this, Jody, because you're fine tuning it to be not necessarily a work of art, but it wasn't just a slapped out, let's get it done, beginning and ending type thing. And it's showing character. And I think it adds to the city, and it'll show after they're all in and after 10 years of, landscape growth, it'll all just be beautiful. Everybody will want to live there, and you'll have been successful. Thank you.
you let me know you're thinking of a lot. All right.
Maybe no for- Or maybe I could buy one, combine and pull it, and then
You can let you run loose.
I was thinking about a taller.
All right, let's get back to seriousness here. I would entertain a motion, absolutely.
I make a motion that we approve the final plat for Providence Springs Cluster Development, subject to findings of fact, conditions of law, and conclusions in the staff report, and with the good cause or the public good of the lot amendments being that it is to the benefit of the residents who will live inside the development to have lots that fit their floor plans, and it has no impact on anyone outside of the development. So
Thank you.
I'll second.
And a second by Shelley, motion by Tyler for approval of it, and a second by Shelley Nazer. All in favor?
I
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
Keep up the good work. Appreciate it. You're doing a great job for the.
Absolutely want development, and it's for the reasons you said. I feel like creating that unique space is what's the rewarding part of it. Just throwing houses out there, that's boring. And tedious.
Well, last time you came, we said no to the stuff you wanted to do to the porch and stuff. But it was something you wanted to do to fine tune the development. It was great idea, but it didn't fly. And then you come back with this, it's like, this flies. And if Cecil, wait, can we have another motion just for Cecil? I'd like to reject, just tell Cecil we rejected it flat out. Because it was, we were favoring Cecil and his.
We approved everything except that law. So, all right. Last bit of item, does anybody have any business that needs to probably planning commission? The one thing I would remind everybody of is we have the city sauerkraut days coming up. And to be supportive and involved in that and so forth. So the dates are the 14th through the 17th or something like that. Does that sound right?
Next week.
It's all next week.
All next week.
So, okay. And for all you sauerkraut lovers, this is your opportunity once a year. All right, if anybody doesn't have anything else, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second. Thank you very much. Okay,